All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. So I wanted to make one final definitive video wrapping up my thoughts on the whole Kevin Levrone situation. I've made several videos about it now, and I've gotten a myriad of different comments on those videos. A lot of people don't think he's even going to compete. A lot of people strongly think he's going to win. A lot of people do think he's going to compete and place within the top 6. A lot of people see him in that top 10 range. So I just wanted to give my final definitive thoughts and why I think that. Alright, so basically I made a video stating that I didn't think Kevin Levrone was even going to compete because for those of you who are unaware, in 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014, Kevin Levrone announced comebacks in each of those years. In each of those years, he did not come back, but he did make like a full video series. He did the social media thing. He promoted it. He told people he's going to do the Olympia. He told people he's going to do the Arnold Classic, and he didn't do any of them. So for that reason, I made a video saying that I did not think he was going to compete. So in this video, I'm going to operate under the assumption that he is competing and what I think is going to happen if he does compete. So basically, if Kevin Levrone competes, I think he's going to place within the 7 to 10 range. And the reason that I think that is because Kevin Levrone is not going to look like prime Kevin Levrone. If we look at pictures and videos of Kevin Levrone from his absolute prime, I'm talking his late 20s, early 30s, in that mid to late 90s range when Kevin Levrone was finishing second at the Olympia. He was winning Arnold Classics. He was looking his absolute best. That's not the Kevin Levrone that we're going to see at the Olympia. We need to all realize that and accept that. Kevin Levrone is 52 years old, and he hasn't competed in 15 years. We need to keep all these factors in mind when we're talking about Kevin Levrone's comeback. A lot of people seem to think that Kevin Levrone's name has some kind of inherent magic that's going to allow him to put on a crazy amount of muscle and replicate his absolute best physique that he ever had at age 52. Now, to be frank with you guys, I think that's absolute nonsense. Kevin Levrone is not going to come on stage in 2016 at age 52 and replicate or do better than his all-time best physique from the 90s. It's just not going to happen. It's completely unrealistic. And the people who think that, I just don't even know where they're coming from with that. If Kevin Levrone was able to duplicate that prime conditioning that he had in the mid to late 90s, he wouldn't have placed so horribly towards the end of his career. We got to keep in mind that in the early 2000s and at the end of the 90s, Kevin Levrone was getting 4th, 5th, and 6th place finishes at big shows. So even as an active pro, when he was still young, he was still competing, he was still training, he was still juicing, he was still living the bodybuilding lifestyle, training, eating right, all that stuff. Even when he was in his prime at a younger age, he was still having trouble cracking the top 3, the top 4, the top 5. So even in his prime as a competitor, he was not cracking the top 5 he was not cracking the top 5 against the guys of that era. And the guys from this era, I believe a lot of their physiques, especially Phil Heath's, I think the guys from this era, a lot of people don't like their physiques because they have the bigger guts, they have the bigger waistlines, and I agree with that analysis. I don't like the big guts, I don't like the big waistlines. I'm not a Phil Heath dick rider, I'm not a Phil Heath fan. But the thing that I think people need to consider is the amount of muscular development, the muscle maturity, the muscle definition. I think the thing that a lot of people are not considering with a guy like Phil Heath versus a guy like Kevin Levrone, a guy like Kai Green versus Kevin Levrone, a guy like Sean Roden versus Kevin Levrone, is the muscle maturity and the muscle density and the detail and definition that is built through years and years and years of training and bodybuilding nonstop. Now, Kevin Levrone took about 10 to 15 years off of bodybuilding, whereas for the past 10 to 15 years, Phil Heath and Kai Green have been training year-round, every single year, living the bodybuilding lifestyle year-round, every single year. That means juicing, eating right, all that stuff. So for the past 10 to 15 years, guys like Kai Green and Phil Heath have been building that muscle maturity, building that muscle density, building that thickness, that detail, that development, that definition that can only be achieved through years and years and years of consistently training. Now, that's one thing that they're going to have over Kevin Levrone. Kevin Levrone hasn't been consistently training for years and years and years. So even if he puts on 40, 50 pounds of muscle between now and the Olympia, it's not going to be the same as 40 or 50 pounds of muscle that Kai Green and Phil Heath have put on over a decade, over 15 years. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be like Big Ramy. It's going to be like Big Ramy. Big Ramy can put on a massive amount of muscle, in a short period of time, but Big Ramy hasn't achieved that muscle maturity and definition and detail that a lot of the other guys have because he put that muscle on so quickly. I mean, this is something that we've seen time and time and time again. It doesn't matter how quickly you can put the muscle on. It's about the quality of the muscle that you put on. If you put on 50 pounds of muscle in 6 months, you think the quality of that muscle is going to be superior to a guy that has put on 50 pounds of muscle over the course of 12 years. Which guy do you think is going to have a better looking physique in terms of definition, detail, density, maturity? So that's one factor that I think a lot of people aren't considering at all, is even if Kevin Levrone comes in at 275, 260, 255 on stage, if he puts on that 50 pounds in the course of months, it's not going to look the same as a guy who's built that over years and years and years and years. So that's one factor people need to consider. Another factor people need to consider is Kevin Levrone's legs. Even as an active competitive pro back in his prime, his legs were subpar. Towards the end of his career, his legs were almost an embarrassment. So we need to consider the fact that his legs are probably not going to measure up to a lot of the guys that are going to be finishing in that top 10. You got to think about the guys. You got to think about guys like Big Ramy, Justin Compton, Kai Green. Picture these guys' legs and look at old pictures of Kevin Levrone's legs, even from his prime. His legs do not measure up with the guys' legs today. So the legs are a huge factor, man. Even though Kevin Levrone's arms and his shoulders and his chest are looking good and big right now in the videos and pictures that he's posting, he's not showing his back. He's not showing his legs. And these are the things that were weak during his career. His arms and shoulders and upper body were always strong points for him during his career, and his legs and back were always weak points. And all that Kevin Levrone has been posting is like 15-second clips of his upper body, 15-second clips in a sleeveless shirt, 15-second clips maybe with his shirt off. I just honestly don't see Kevin Levrone bringing in any type of drastic change to his legs or back that's going to be enough for him to win the Olympia, let alone place in the top 6. He wasn't able to do it during his prime. Why would he be able to do it when he's 52? I mean, it's just common sense, guys. If Kevin Levrone could make this awesome comeback, make this awesome transformation, make this awesome change to where he could win the Olympia, why didn't he do it in the early 2000s when he was still young and competing? Why didn't he do it back in his prime? Why wait till he's 52 if he could have done this years ago and won the Olympia? A lot of people think that the guys from the 90s had superior physiques to the guys today, and I agree with that statement. They looked much better. They looked much better aesthetically. They were much more visually appealing. But in terms of a judging standpoint, how they judge today's bodybuilding, Kevin Levrone from the 90s would still not win the Olympia against Phil Heath. Just think about it from a betting standpoint. If you were a betting man, would you bet that Kevin Levrone at age 52 is going to win the Olympia in 2016? If you were a betting man, would you bet that Kevin Levrone at age 52 is going to look better than or equal to how he looked back in the 90s at his prime when he was 20 and when he was in his late 20s and early 30s? You think he's going to look better than that at age 52 when he retired because he was placing so horribly back in his prime? If he could have done this, he could have done it back then. Why would he wait till 2016 to do this if he could have done it back then? If you were a betting man, would you have Kevin Levrone in the top 6 with a guy who won't even show his legs versus a guy like Big Ramy? I don't even have Branch Warren in my top 10. And I bet if you put Branch Warren next to Kevin Levrone with Branch Warren's legs, I think he might place higher than Kevin Levrone. Because bodybuilding's about the complete package. It doesn't matter if Kevin Levrone comes in with an awesome upper body, an awesome physique. It doesn't matter if Kevin Levrone comes in with an awesome upper body, has big arms, big round shoulders like he had in his prime, big round chest. If he doesn't have the legs and he doesn't have the back, he's not going to place well, and that's just the fact of the matter. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Kevin Levrone fan, and I would love to see Kevin Levrone come back and place high at age 52. It will be an amazing accomplishment. Everybody wants to root for the underdog. Everyone wants to see Kevin Levrone place well. I want to see him place well. I would love to see him win the Olympia. But I think from a realistic standpoint, we can't expect that. We can't set our expectations that high. We can't set the bar that high because that's just not what's going to happen. I would love to see it happen, but I don't think it's going to. So that's where I'm coming from, guys. I'm not a Kevin Levrone hater by any means. I'm a huge fan of his physique. I'm a huge fan of what he's doing. And for age 52, he looks impressive as hell. But for the Olympia stage in 2016, I don't think he looks impressive. For his age, he looks impressive as hell. But for the Olympia, not so much. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, guys. Nick Strength and Power. signing out, talking about Kevin Levrone for the very last time. We're out of here.